Cycling and riding bikes is a pastime for millions of Americans. However, some people aren't that into it, don't know what to do, don't have a nice bike, or maybe just hate riding up hills. Well, for Don Dicostanzo, the CEO and founder of Pedego Bikes, he's created a solution: electric pedal-assisted bikes that are a blast to ride. In this episode, we're going to hear about his journey through selling chemicals, starting companies, and eventually creating the world's most enjoyable bike to ride.
Hey guys, this is Jessica Watts, and this episode of Sea Life is brought to you by Stark in the OC. Here we share the stories, struggles, and triumphs of CEOs of the brands we all know and love. If you listen to your podcast on iTunes, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating. If you have an Amazon Echo, just say, "Alexa, open AnyPod and play the Sea Life podcast."
What's up, everyone? This is another episode of the Sea Life.
Learn from everyone you can. Learn of what your interests are.
Yeah, I was making $3.75 an hour. That's what it looked like.
Being an entrepreneur is like jumping off a cliff and building a plane on the way down.
We know the names, we recognize the brands, but how do CEOs and entrepreneurs build successful companies? That is the story we want to tell. What's up, everyone? This is another episode of The Sea Life, and my co-host Todd is out today, so I'm flying solo. But not to mention my guest, I'm here with Don Dicostanzo, who is the CEO and founder of Pedego Bikes. I was really excited when I found out Don was going to be on the show because I've ridden the bikes. I think they're awesome. If you don't know about Pedego Bikes, we'll get into a little bit what they are, but they're a blast to ride. So, Don, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me on, Tyler, and thanks for pronouncing my name right. You didn't even ask me beforehand.
Oh, yeah, I figured I'd risk it, and if you tell me, then we're gonna have to go back and edit it out, patch it in. So awesome, Don. Well, let's jump right in. So obviously, I kind of know a little bit about your company now. I've been a customer, I've rented the bikes and stuff, but it wasn't always electric bikes for you. So maybe take us back to because you're a California native, right?
No, actually, I wasn't born here, but I got here as fast as I could. I graduated from high school here and went to college here. And after I graduated, I got a job with a chemical company right across the street from the campus called WINS.
Where did you go to college at?
I went to school at Cal State Fullerton, California State University Fullerton. And I got a job right across the street with an entry-level sales job with a company called WINS. I got a degree in marketing, and I went to work as a salesperson, and I worked up the corporate ladder for 22 years, had about 15 different jobs.
You worked at WINS for 22 years.
Hard to believe in today's world, isn't it?
Oh, my gosh, that's crazy. And you worked your way, and what were some of the different roles you stopped through on your way?
Well, I started out in sales, and then I became an account executive. And then I became the national sales manager. Then I became a director of marketing. And then I was relocated to Texas, and I became an operations director for a division in Texas. Then I moved back to California and operated a bigger division. And then I became president in 1999.
So, okay, sorry. That's a huge span of time as well as accomplishing a lot of different things. So you were a sales guy originally.
Started out in selling, and quickly I recognized that the company lacked in the marketing tools they needed necessary, so I started helping the marketing department.
And was that a natural transition for you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you kind of had the knack for marketing. Did you find so you had more of a marketing mind?
Well, I went to school and studied it, and when I went out into the real world, I got to practice it and recognized that the job of marketing is to make the sales guys' jobs real easy. Well, they weren't making my job real easy when I was there, so I decided to make it easy for myself, and I developed the marketing tools that I needed to be a successful salesperson, and that obviously stood out, and it involved me into the marketing department, and I helped with different things, including acquisitions the company made. I was kind of jack of all trades. I also fortunately got to run all the meetings for the company, and I got to travel around the world and do site selection and meeting planning, which I enjoyed immensely as well.
Site selection for
our meetings at WINS. We had national sales meetings every year
gotcha.
And regional meetings, and somebody had to do the organizing, and nobody on staff knew how to do that. I kind of took it under my wing, mainly because I like to do traveling, and that gave me the opportunity to travel, stay at nice hotels, and organize meetings.
So you become president in 99, and then what happens?
Well, it was the dream job. I got the corner office. It was like, wow, I finally arrived. And it came with all the stature that came with a company car, an expense account, big expense account, and stock options. And I thought, wow, I've made it. Only a year later.
Wait, how? So you're but I mean, you're in your 40s.
I'm in my mid 40s at that point.
Okay,
good time. Yeah.
So are you thinking this is it? Like you're going to retire with this company? And
yeah, I thought it was it. I mean, that was kind of the pinnacle. I loved working for the company. I did a good job with it. I had worldwide operations, so I get to travel around the world, and we had operations everywhere: South Africa, Australia, all over Europe. So it was a dream job. Until a year later, when the company was acquired by a large industrial company who was not as entrepreneurial as the owner of the company previously. And their business model and practices and mine were radically different.
So not even a year into taking over as president, this acquisition happens, and you read the writing on the wall immediately?
No, actually, I was very optimistic. I thought it would be a good fit. They brought me into their inner circle, and they gave me a nice package to stay on board as a group president. And I thought I was going to be there for the long term until about a month into the program.
Oh, so once starts, what happened? Were they coming in trying to change the way you guys were doing things? Or, I mean, where was the conflict in that?
Well, we did all of our business through independent dealers and distributors. And 1 month into the program, they come in and announce that's an unholy alliance, and we want to go direct. And these are people who I knew that were part of, almost part of my family, that people that I'd spent 20 years with, and they essentially wanted to get rid of all of them and go direct and eliminate all these entrepreneurs. And I had a real problem with that.
So that was was that the beginning of the end?
Absolutely.
Okay. So how much longer do you stay on, or are you just kind of at that point?
Well, they enticed me to sign a 2-year stay agreement after they acquired the company, and there was a big pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if I stayed the 2 years. So I lived out the 2 years.
And it was it contentious? Was it?
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
Yes, in a lot of different ways.
So that 2 years was a bit rough, and were you a bit disillusioned at that point? Or I can't imagine. I mean, you would have already kind of been planning what's next, right? Because you kind of knew that your 2 years, at the end of the 2 years, you were going to go do something else.
Exactly. Well, it turned out to be the best 2 years of my life. I wasn't aware of it at the time, but then I got to decide what I was going to do next, because I knew a month into it that I wouldn't. After 2 years, I wouldn't be there anymore. So I had 2 years on their payroll to figure out what I wanted to do next, and I was 100% convinced I didn't want to work for anybody again.
So at that point, you had, not having been an entrepreneur, you kind of like decided you were going to strike out on your own.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say I wasn't an entrepreneur, because the company that I worked for was very entrepreneurial. They allowed us anything we wanted to do, and all the people I dealt with were entrepreneurs. All these independent dealers and distributors around the world, they were all entrepreneurs. So I got along with them well. I always was a little bit envious that they had their own business and wished that I had done it earlier. But as it turns out, it was a great learning experience for what I wanted to do in the future. So I had 2 years on their payroll to figure out what I wanted to do.
So the guy that you worked for at Wins, was he somewhat of a mentor to you? Like you mentioned, he was a pretty entrepreneurial individual. I mean, were you close with him? Was that, or was he? Well,
during my 22 years at Wins, I had probably had 10 or 12 different people that I worked for. But to answer your question, yes, there were three people specifically that helped me and groomed me and gave me a lot of the real world business experience that I need, which is something I'll always remember and appreciate, because I was learning while somebody else was paying me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there was an attorney on staff. There was the CEO of the company and the chairman of the board all took me under their wings and developed me into becoming the president of the company over a period of time.
And so with that, you kind of had the confidence, like if I go out on my own and start my own business, then I'll have the education in the background.
Well, being an entrepreneur is risky, but all three of those people I mentioned all got fired the day the company was taken over. So all those guys were gone, and I was the highest level person left after the acquisition. And I said afterwards, they were the lucky ones. They left right away.
Fair enough. Okay, so you're planning 2 years. You got 2 years to go, but you're planning the next move. What do you do after that?
Well, the very next thing I did is I acquired a smaller company that did the same thing as Wynn's called Zach, and it was a chemical company based in Dallas. And while I retained my residence here in California, I bought a home in Texas and commuted back and forth to get this company out of near bankruptcy and to build it and to morph it into something different from what it was. It originally was a chemical company, and it stayed a chemical company, but during my tenure there, I morphed it into a car wash company. So we had 40 car washes when I sold the company in 2008.
So it started out as a chemical company, doing all the same stuff that you did with, what was it, like fuel treatments and things like that?
Yeah, anything that you would put into a car, radiator treatment, gas treatment, fuel injector cleaner, different chemicals for the car, including appearance products, waxes and polishes. But it became apparent to me that the industry was changing, and a lot of these places where you would put these chemicals into were being sealed off by the manufacturers, and the long-term run of the chemical company was near its end. So,
wait, what do you mean that all the places you'd put the chemicals are being sealed off?
Well, for example, the transmission fluid now is 100,000-mile transmission fluid. When I started in the business, you would change your transmission fluid every 12,000 or 24,000 miles.
So the rate at which people were going to need your products was starting to decline?
Correct. And the same thing would be true with the coolant. Their recommendation was that you would flush out your radiator and cooling system once a year. That went to 100,000 miles as well. They put permanent coolant in it. So we provided those coolant products that would go there. That wasn't going to last very long. As the cars got aged out and got retired and new cars came on, they wouldn't need the chemicals.
And was that what Zach was facing at the time? Was this change in the industry? Or was there other issues that were causing it to be near bankruptcy?
Well, the first issue was they were very local and they didn't have any scale. And they were only in Texas, only in the Dallas metro area. We expanded them right away to be national from everywhere. Most of our customers were in Arizona, Florida, California. So we expanded the geographic. They just didn't have enough momentum. They were a small company, didn't have enough resources to compete with the big guys. But during that time, it became apparent to me that while this was on the decline, we were still able to grow the company, but the opportunity for car washes was much broader and much longer because the cars are always going to get dirty, and nobody can engineer the idea that something's not going to get dirty.
Yeah. So then, so the places, so you started actually building brick and mortar car washes all over the country?
Well, yeah, everywhere from California to Florida. Again, most of them in Texas and Arizona. But the idea would be that in the Wynn's business, we provided equipment to flush out a radiator. And then along that, we provided the chemicals. Well, the same thing was true with the car wash. We provide the equipment, and then we would also provide the chemicals to do it. So we installed 39 of these 40 car washes were in franchise car dealerships, where they might have a group of people doing manual labor. We automated that process by putting a machine in there that could wash a car in 90 seconds as opposed to 10 or 15 minutes. Virtually no labor.
So Zach didn't actually, there weren't like Zach car washes. You guys were basically helping people get car washes into their existing facilities and things like that. Or would you operate them too?
Well, we wouldn't operate them, but we would provide all the chemicals and equipment necessary. So we called them Zach Tech, and they would be installed in car dealerships. We would buy them from a car wash manufacturer. We would install them, and we would maintain them, and we would provide all the chemicals for them. So it was a razor blade type approach. We provided the razors for free as long as they bought the blades from us, and the blades were the chemicals and the maintenance on the car wash.
Gotcha. So you successfully turned that company around?
Very much so.
How long did that take?
Well, we owned it from 2003 until 2008, so 5 years.
Okay, and then you sell it?
My business partner approached me and said that he wanted to either move to Texas or buy me out, and I wasn't interested in moving to Texas. So he bought me out.
Okay, and so this is 2008, so a lot else is going on in the economy at this time, and so you kind of, what was your plan at that point?
Well, in 2007, I had discovered an electric bicycle because I lived at the beach, and I loved to ride my bike down at the beach, but I didn't love so much going up the hill after the long ride. So consequently, I would decide more frequently than not to ride my bike down to the beach, but to take my car. So I discovered an electric bicycle. I bought one. I bought it online. It was a horrible piece of junk, but it got me up the hill. And my thought process at that point was, wow, there might be something to this. And at that time, the technology was evolving. I went around and visited the bicycle stores in the neighborhood, and they all hated electric bikes and thought that it was the worst idea ever.
Was that like just a purist mentality? Like,
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, more of a competitive thing. Like, why would you take a perfectly good bicycle and ruin it by putting a motor on it? And from there, I discovered that there was a bad attitude about electric bikes, but there'd probably be a demand for them. So I bought 6 or 7 more electric bikes, different brands and manufacturers, had them all lined up in my garage.
You just start sampling all the different ones?
Trying them all. My friends would come over and ride them. We'd all have a great time, and they all wanted to know where they could buy them. And I said, well, it's kind of a hopscotch. And then I read online that the largest electric bike retailer in the country is in New York City. And on their website, they said that while we're in New York City, our biggest market for these electric bikes is in California. So I thought, wow, that's a disconnect if I've ever seen one. They're in New York and they're selling to Californians. Why not open a store here in California? So I ended up deciding to open a retail store as an experiment in Newport Beach, literally next to the crab cooker, contiguous. We shared the same wall with them down on Balboa Peninsula, and it was an instant success.
Wait, so you're buying electric bikes wholesale?
Correct.
And then you're just selling them in a retail space, and this is all while you're still at Zach.
Correct.
So you kind of always had the next thing, like ready to go, huh?
Yeah, I just thought that there might be an end to this, and I didn't like going back and forth to Dallas all the time, and wanted to find something I could do and live here at the beach rather than be in Dallas and going back and forth there. So I think that was part of it. But I think more importantly, I was identified that the future of all transportation is going to be electric. I was paying attention to electric cars. So most importantly, when I opened this store, it was not just an electric bike store. We sold electric cars. We sold electric skateboards. We sold electric golf carts. We sold electric scooters. And we sold electric bicycles. And we sold electric skateboards. So it was an electric store that you could come and visit. And it was a 3,500 square foot store that had all this stuff in it, and you could test ride it and all that, and discovered real quickly that the real hot spot at this point was the electric bikes. That's what everybody had interest in, and that's what was the most successful when I had that store.
So you kind of had this store as like a way to kind of beta test all these different concepts and things and see what people were into, and that's kind of what drove you down to focusing on the bikes?
Exactly. So when I opened it, I didn't have the intention of it being a complete retail, an R&D development, but it turned out to be a great research and development laboratory for me.
Yeah. Sorry, Jess is just going to adjust the mic. Saw it drooping a little on you.
Thank you.
So then your partner comes to you and wants to buy you out, and are you kind of in the back of your mind thinking like, oh yeah, now I can just go with the bikes? Or, I mean, what was that transition like?
Exactly. I thought that, wow, this is a great opportunity. I can take the money that I get from selling this company and start an electric bike company. So literally, I flipped it almost immediately from having the retail store. I sold that off, took the money that I'd gotten from the sale of Zach, and immediately flipped it into Pedego.
So at this point, you are very knowledgeable in the electric bike space.
Oh, I wouldn't say that at all. In fact, I would say
you at least sampled. You at least found out what you didn't like from all the other ones, right?
Well, first of all, I have zero bicycle experience. If somebody told me 15 years ago I'd have a large bicycle company, I would laugh at them and say, I don't know anything about bicycles. I don't even ride a bicycle. But I learned quite a bit during having that location, that there was going to be a big demand for electric bikes, and something technology-wise changed everything, and that's the lithium battery. Mm-hmm. And in the beginning, we were buying different bikes from different companies, but we were very frustrated with the quality and the style and the choices that the companies provided us, and we were more frustrated with the poor service that they provided us. So that's when I decided there would be an opportunity for somebody to do electric bikes and do it right. At the same time, we were putting 30-pound lead-acid battery packs on these bikes, and they would have a range of maybe 10 miles.
Wow.
And during the end of that year, lithium batteries started showing up, and the lithium batteries went 30 or 40 miles, and they only weighed 6 pounds. So it was a huge shift from a technological standpoint that made me realize that now electric bikes can become mainstream. And that was the decision to start Pedego and to start an electric bicycle company that wouldn't be the biggest one, but the best one. So we designed products that would be high quality and give outstanding service, which were two things that were lacking in the industry.
So you kind of make a decision, like when you transition out from Zach, you're like, I don't know exactly what this is going to look like, but I can do this better than what they're doing already, and you just kind of took the plunge and just started developing concepts and things.
That's exactly what happened. But more importantly, I had enough money in the bank that I could spend the time to do that. It wasn't like I was worrying about going to get a paycheck again. And I had many offers for people who wanted me to run companies for them, but I didn't want to run a company for anybody else. I wanted to run one for myself.
So then this is 2008, you said, right?
Correct.
And so you start, how long does it take you to develop your first prototype?
Well, we didn't start selling until 2009.
Okay.
So I'd already been kind of thinking about it and working with it and had some designs in mind. So I went to a professional design firm that designed the first bikes. I told them what I wanted. I'm not a designer, but I knew what the customers would want. And I'd learned two things when I had the retail store. The first thing is the men want to know how fast they go, and the women want to know what colors do they come in. So right away, I knew I wanted to be able to answer those questions and have the limit was 20 miles an hour legally to keep it a bicycle. So we made sure they get to 20 miles an hour really quickly, and we had lots of colors.
And now the bikes that I've ridden, when I go down and rent them, how different are they from your first ones?
Well, the first bikes we designed were all beach cruisers because we lived at the beach, and we thought California, particularly Orange County, is the perfect place to sell electric beach cruisers. So for the first 2 years, we only offered beach cruisers in lots of different colors and different sizes, but we only really had two models, a classic and a step-through. And those were designed for the California beach people in mind. And very quickly, people all over the world wanted to buy them. Something that they perceived to be made in California started selling all over the world, and people buying them online. And the internet made that all possible. If you think back to those days, that's when online shopping had not even started yet. But people would find things on the internet that they wouldn't ordinarily do because it was just starting to evolve. So at that time, the combination of the lithium-ion batteries, the involvement of electric cars as well. Electric cars had their history in the 90s where General Motors had the EV1 and the EV2, and they were lead acid, and they had all the limitations that the bikes had. Fast forward now to 2008, 2009, Tesla's becoming of age, electric cars are becoming of age, and simultaneously, and parallel to what we're doing, electric cars are becoming of age at the same time.
And so how did you first start selling the bikes? Did you have a retail store?
That was the biggest challenge we faced, was how to sell the bikes. We did not have a retail store. We thought we would convince the bicycle shops to carry them, and that turned out to be a disaster because they had this purist attitude. In one bike store that I went to in Dana Point, I went in and made my pitch because remember, at the end of the day, I'm still a salesperson. That's what my job was. I went in and I thought I had a very compelling argument, and the manager looked at me and he said, "We will never sell electric bikes here." And I said, "Why not?" And he tapped his chest and he said, "It's not in our DNA. We hate electric bikes." I thought, I think I have a problem here, so we have to establish our own distribution method.
And so how did you start distributing them?
Well, believe it or not, the first thing we tried was home shopping parties. We had a lot of customers that bought our bikes that wanted to tell their friends, and their friends were buying bikes, and we thought, well, why not have a home shopping party?
So like classic, like Pampered Chef
exactly
type of thing.
Come over to my house on Saturday afternoon, and let me show you these really cool electric bikes. And we required these, we called them neighborhood electric dealers, NEDs, and they would come over. We would, show up there with a van full of bikes. They would let the people test ride the bikes and let them order them, and we would pay a commission to those people that helped us do it. And it did okay. After we got through our family and friends, though, it didn't evolve much past that. So I wouldn't say it was a failure. I'd just say it wasn't a big success.
Big success. So then what did you do after that?
Well, interesting enough, one of these customers that bought one of these bikes through one of these home shopping things approached us, and he said, "I would like to open up a store in Huntington Beach, California, and all I want to do is sell Pedegos." And I thought, oh, I like that idea. I said, but selling them's not quite enough. We want you to rent them as well, because that gets people exposed to the brand. He goes, oh, absolutely, I want to rent them. And that was in 2011. And that was the foundation for what we now, with 141 different locations. That was the seed that we watered and nurtured in order to make it into 141 stores.
Yeah, because I mean, I imagine the percentage of people who will rent a Pedego in comparison to the people who will buy one is just a huge number. I mean, everyone would like it's because it's kind of if you haven't done it, it's like a novelty. So if they're not in the market to buy one, they at least want to go rent one and cruise around on it.
You're 100% correct. Many people don't even know what an electric bike is, much less do they want to buy one. So people don't wake up on Saturday morning and say, let's go buy an electric bike today. More likely than that, they might stumble into one of our shops. They might be on vacation. Wow, electric bike, that's an interesting idea. Let's go rent one. So they take one for a ride and they come back. And the next thing you know, they say, well, I live in Topeka. Can you send a couple of these, can I ship these bikes to Topeka? And yes, we can. So they buy them. And the next thing you know, they get to Topeka and all their friends want them. So they open up a store. And that's exactly how it's happened. So all of our stores have opened up by somebody starting out by renting one. They like it. They enjoy it. They buy a couple of them. And then they go home to Topeka or wherever. Our guy in Las Vegas did it. He had a boat in San Diego, lives in Las Vegas. He's 70-something years old at the time. He rents bikes in San Diego. He loves them. He buys 4. He takes them home. He calls up. He says, my friends want some of these. So we sell him 8 more that he sells to his friends. And now he's opening his second location in Las Vegas. He's done a tremendously good job. We call him Mr. Electric Bike because he's now 78 years old, and this is just what he loves to do.
That's awesome. And so, but from what I understand, you use a license model and not a franchise model. Can you kind of explain how that works and why you went that way?
Sure. This is a very important point. When we started the business, we didn't have any idea we'd have our own stores. When we had our first store, we thought, well, why don't we franchise? This is a good franchisable model. So we went to the franchise experts and said, how many stores do you have? We said 1. They said, come back when you've got 10 or 15. So we went back. We opened up. I think we had 30 at the time. I went back to
these are all corporate stores, like
these are stores owned by entrepreneurs,
okay.
People who just went through just the exercise I talked about, rented one and wanted to buy them. So 1 turned into 30 in a matter of 2 or 3 years. So we went back to the franchise experts and we said we want to revisit the franchise. And they said, well, how many stores do you have? And I said, we have 30 now. 30? Where have you been? You should have come back when you had 10 or 12. And so it all kind of happened kind of fast. So we decided that we met with them. We decided that franchising would be the right model for us. They convinced us that it would be. But they warned us. They said, 95% of the people who go through this whole exercise end up opening up franchises. 5% do not. They choose that franchise is not the right choice for them. Well, we were one of the 5%. After we went through the whole training, we developed all the materials. We discovered that franchising would not be right for us for 2 main, very important reasons. The first reason is none of our existing dealerships would have qualified for their definition of a franchise. The franchise is somebody that they describe as somebody who will take orders and do exactly what you tell them to do and be open the hours you want to do and adhere to a very strict set of rules. Well, I'm the last guy. The word rule isn't in my vocabulary. I like to refer to them as guidelines.
So these people that were running the stores for you, you were kind of had a very hands-off approach with them?
We gave them advice and counsel and direction, but we never told them what to do.
Wow.
And in the franchise model, they want to tell you exactly what to do, when to do, and how to do it.
You have to replicate every system, right?
Yeah, and we had no interest in doing that. The second reason is in talking to lots of franchisees, I discovered that there's a very frustrating attitude and maybe an antagonistic relationship between the franchisee and the franchisor, because their franchisee has to pay fees to the franchisor. And they generally, no matter what the fee is, they generally resent it. And the franchisor is famous for keep raising those fees, which creates all kinds of animosity between the two. So we did not want that in this environment. So we looked at other alternatives and discovered that doing a license agreement was a much better arrangement, where in essence, we provide them a royalty-free license agreement to sell Pedegos and to put a Pedego sign up and to use our systems and methods in exchange for them carrying our brand exclusively. And so no money changes hands. We provide a lot of the same services that a franchisor would provide a franchisee, except we don't charge for them. So it's free. So there's no franchise fee. Most franchises start up with a $10 or $15 or $25 or even $300,000 franchise fee. We don't have any of that, and we don't charge any ongoing fees to the dealers. Each of the stores has their own program, does what they want to do, has their open hours, and we give them lots of guidance and help in the marketing part of the business.
So hold on, this is strangely similar to what you were doing at Zach, right? Like you're kind of providing them with what they need to get started, and then providing the support, and as long as they keep using your products and selling what you have.
You're very observant, but actually more so than it wins than at Zach. At Zach, we did it direct. We didn't have distributors and dealers. We had dealers, but not distributors. In the case of Wins, we had hundreds of distributors around the world that rode around with Wins on their vans. They wore Wins apparel. They were Wins. People thought they were Wins. Well, we applied that exact same philosophy at Pedego, that everybody who's part of the Pedego team is part of the family. We have an annual conference here in California every year, and all the dealers come in and they're wearing their Pedego attire and they're talking Pedego. So we've built a brand around a community of our stores and the people there. And the best part about it is they're so enthusiastic and so excited, and they're just having the best fun of their lives being in business, but doing something that they're selling fun.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. So you decide in 2000, you say it was in 2011 when you opened your first store in Huntington? That was when the first one opened?
September of 2011 was when the decision was made to open that store. And I think it opened about 60 days after that. So late 2011, we opened the first Pedego branded store, in which case we took a shack that was inhabited by a homeless person and turned it into a Pedego store.
And so nearly 7 years later, you're at how many stores?
We've signed up 141 dealerships around the world, about 100 in the U.S., and the other 40 or so are scattered around the world.
All over the world. What are some of the countries?
Well, we have several in the U.K. We have 5, I think, in France now, 3 in Italy. And the biggest numbers in Canada. So most are in the U.S. Canada would be second, and then scattered around we have one in South Africa, and we have a few more under development right now in Australia and New Zealand.
So when was the first time, when did you start seeing the bikes around? There must have been a point where you all of a sudden started, you see people and they're riding by it on one of your bikes, and you don't know them and they don't know you, but they love the bikes. And so at what point did that start happening?
Very quickly, because we began selling bikes here in Orange County. Our first store was in Huntington Beach. Our second store was in Corona del Mar. Our third store was in Carlsbad. So we began seeing them quite frequently here, and I didn't just let them run down. I would chase them down and ask them.
Long as they weren't going too fast, right? Because those things have some speed to them.
Well, yeah, and you go anywhere in Orange County now, and you'll find you can't ride more than 5 minutes without seeing a Pedego going back and forth. And interesting enough, I was riding a couple of weeks ago and bumped into somebody on the bike path that was not happy, and I said, "Well, how do you like your Pedego?" She goes, "I hate it." And I'm like, "What do you mean you hate it?" "Well, I rented it, and I rented it with my daughters, and we rode over to Huntington Beach, and we came back, and about a mile ago, the energy wore out, and now I have to pedal it." So all of a sudden, she hates the bike. And I'm saying, "Well, I'm so sorry. First of all, I introduced myself. I said, this is not the experience we want you to have. I'll take care of it, make sure that it's comp for you. And I'll also comp you anywhere in the world you want to go. I'll comp you to take another Pedego rental somewhere so you don't have this bad idea about it." She goes, "Oh, that's really wonderful." So I gave her my card. I called the store. I said, "You comp her. Tell her that she comes back tomorrow. It's free." And then she called me. She'll be able to go anywhere in the world. Now she called me about 3 days later and said, "I can't believe the customer service you provided. I'd like to become a dealer for Pedego."
No way. That's awesome. And so I've ridden the bikes. I think they're awesome. But for people who don't know what Pedego is or what the bikes are about, can you kind of explain how the bikes work?
Essentially, a Pedego is a bicycle, but it has the help of a small motor on the rear hub, and some have them in under where the pedals are, and they help you get up hills. The main reason people stop riding bikes are hills. They hate to climb the hill.
Yeah.
And, if you think about an exercise machine where you're pedaling a bike, it has different levels of intensity. Well, a bike is the same way, except you don't get a choice when the intensity is if you come upon a hill or you've got a headwind. The electric bike gets you to override all that and to give you a boost whenever you need it. Now, some people need a boost all the time because they might have a bad hip or a bad knee, or they might be diabetic. Some people just like to have the boost because they're not used to riding and they don't have the physical strength to ride for a long period of time. So there's a lot of different reasons why people ride them. But the main reason they buy them is because it's fun. It's fun to ride a bike. It's not fun to go up a hill. And it's not fun to face a headwind. Some hills aren't as bad as headwinds. If you're facing a headwind, it doesn't stop. It just keeps going and going. A hill, at least you get to the top, and then you can go down the hill. But our customers tell us that it's actually more fun to ride a Pedego up a hill than it is down a hill because they have a sense of empowerment that they can ride and smooth out the hills and make them a little more level. So there is exercise involved. People think that there's no exercise involved. We have one woman who's featured in our catalog and online who lost over 250 pounds riding a Pedego.
250 pounds.
She was over 400 pounds, and she would say morbidly obese, and she was frustrated with her life, and she tried every bit of exercise equipment you could imagine. And she came to her husband one day and said, "I want to get an electric bike." And he said, "No way. We've got a garage full of exercise equipment that you don't use. Why would you want another piece?" She goes, "This is different." And it ended up changing her life. Now she uses her exercise equipment. She competes in triathlons. She's become, and she weighs now under 200 pounds. And all because she started out with an electric bike.
Wow. For all the people, I'm sure there's people out there that are kind of haters and say you're taking the exercise out of riding a bike. But really what you're doing is you're providing a more accessible and user-friendly experience of getting on a bike.
So anybody who would say that just doesn't understand what an electric bike is, and that's why I encourage them to just go try one. Don't take my word for it. We get all kinds of people, competitive athletes, all types of people that once they ride one, they have a whole different perception of what they're not motorcycles. They're giving you assistance where you might need it. So
it has the pedal assist, right? Like, so you can set it to kick in when you pedal more or less?
Well, there's two types of ways for an electric bike to operate. One is with a throttle, where it works just like a motorcycle, so you don't have to pedal at all. But you can use that throttle when you need to get up a hill. You can pedal the bike ordinarily, like an ordinary bike, but when you need a help, you can twist the throttle and it will help you. The second way is to pedal assist, where there's some sophisticated programming that goes into the pedals that can tell how much speed you want, either electronically or by how much power you're putting into it, and then give you the assistance you need depending on how hard you're pushing. Those are two different technologies. Some people would claim one is better than the other. It all depends on the individual. So almost all of our bikes have both of those technologies built in. Why should a customer have to decide when they buy it? Some people think, well, I only want a throttle because I'm never going to want a pedal. Some people say, well, I don't want a throttle. I'm always going to want a pedal. And they're usually both wrong. And they find out that they like both features, that they want to pedal it. And there's times when they want a throttle. Maybe after 20 miles of pedaling, they're tired and they just want to motor home. Or somebody has sciatica or any other ailment that comes and goes, or they're diabetic. They may then want to use the throttle on occasion. Other times they won't want to use it.
Yeah, very cool. So what's the future look like for you and for Pedego?
Well, there's so much blue ocean out there, it's scary. In Europe, about 50 to 60% of all electric bikes now sold are electric. In the U.S., it's less than 2%. So the amount of opportunity is unbelievable. I mean, there are 75 million aging baby boomers and 60 million seniors in this country that are all candidates for an electric bike. And the more we expose them to them, the more they recognize how much fun it is. And there's not only the exercise part and the recreational part, but there's a social aspect as well. So these people go out and ride together. They have clubs that go together. We just had one group of Californians that left here and went back and rode on the Allegheny Trail from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. over 10 days. And the average age of these people was 70 years old.
Whoa.
And they rode through mud and storms, and they had just regular Pedego bikes.
So how do you do a ride like that on a Pedego? Like, is there ways, like, they just stopping to charge them overnight? Because, I mean, how long does the battery last?
The battery will last anywhere from 30 to 50 miles without pedaling. But when you add pedaling to the equation, they can easily go 100 miles. They had a support van that followed them that had spare batteries, but they never used them. Every day they went about 30 miles, and they pedaled, and they went up and down hills, and they went through a lot of tough weather. And they even had to cross, 2 times they had to cross some big trees that had fallen across the bike trail. And this group of average 70-something-year-old people lifted their bikes up over these big, huge trees to get through the thing. So
they were able to get from Pittsburgh to D.C. on one battery because they're pedaling and using the assist.
No. Each day they charged it.
Each day they charged it.
So they stayed at hotels and charged
it.
But the charging was like charging your phone. You just plug a charger into an outlet. And so they charged them at the hotels each night that they stayed in.
That's awesome. So you want to grow this into a much larger percentage of bike sales in the U.S. and get more people riding bikes and being active. Actually, here's a question for you. Who do you find ideally gravitates to the Pedego? Is it people who already like to ride bikes, or is it people who are intimidated by the idea of riding a bike?
Well, first of all, most of the people who buy Pedegos haven't ridden a bike in 10 or 15 or 20 years.
Really?
This gets them back on a bike. The bike industry has now decided that this might be a good idea, and they've all come up with their own versions of their own electric bikes. Unfortunately for them, they built them for cyclists, and they took a cyclist approach. We took a non-cyclist approach. We said, what do we've got to do to get people on bikes that wouldn't ordinarily ride one? So the whole industry is chasing 5 or 10% of the world, which are cyclists. We're chasing the other 90%, which happens to be a much bigger and broader opportunity than they have.
Very cool. So awesome. Now, you mentioned, you've told me in the past, you've got a couple other projects you're working on right now. What is that? What else do you have going on outside of Pedego?
Well, one of the companies that I funded a few years ago is a company called TicketSocket, and it's white label ticketing for people who want to have events. So Color Me Rad would be a good example of a ticketing event we do where somebody needs a ticket to go to an event. We issue the tickets on that person's website. So if you were a ski resort or you were a water park and you wanted to sell your own tickets, we have the ticketing solution for them that we do on just a per fee basis for each ticket that they cut with no other fees. So rather than going out to a different ticketing platform, they stay right on the website and they keep ownership of the information that's there, and they get the credit card transaction money put right in their account right away.
So like when I go to a concert venue and then they link me away to Ticketmaster, what you guys would do is provide the actual venue or a company with the ability to sell tickets.
Correct.
Without using Ticketmaster?
Correct. Ticketmaster doesn't like us because they take a big fee. We take a very small fee, and it's a fully automated platform.
And so companies are, is it concert venues, like amusement parks? I mean, anything you need a ticket for?
We do anything that involves a ticket. So for example, for Pedego, we're having our annual Pedego Palooza, which is going to take here in Huntington Beach. We'll use TicketSocket for that. We'll issue tickets to people, and we'll give them VIP credentials, and they will all be done through this ticketing platform.
And it all exists on your website, right?
Correct. So they don't leave the website. They don't go out to any of the other
so businesses,
sites.
I'm sure, love that just because it keeps them on their website longer.
Yeah, once they leave and go to another one of these sites, they may not come back.
Yeah, very cool. And then what else? You have another project you're involved with?
Yeah, so 3 years ago, I saw an opportunity to move big stuff. I was in Costco at the parking lot, and I came out and I saw a woman standing there with her family and this big screen TV that they're trying to get in the back of their subcompact car. And I looked at this TV and I looked at the car and I looked at them and I thought to myself, there's no way that TV's going home in or on that car tonight. So I went into Costco and I came back out about 15 minutes later, and the woman is still standing there with the shopping cart and the big TV. And I said, do you mind if I ask what's going on here? She goes, no. She goes, my husband had to go home and get my brother's truck, take the kids to my mom, go home and get my brother's truck so we could take this TV home. We thought we could get it on our car. And I thought, wow, that must be a lot of people that come out of Costco thinking they're going to take their lawn furniture home or their TV home. I thought there might be an opportunity. So upon doing a little more research, I found out there wasn't anybody that could help them. There was no delivery service or no product. So at that point,
Costco won't deliver?
No, Costco is interesting. In Costco, she had to wait in the parking lot because Costco gives you two choices. You can either take it away there or stay with it in the parking lot, or you can return it to them. They have no staging area. They don't have room for it. So they don't have, you never see anything staged at Costco. They don't allow it. So you either stay with it or you return it. So it means that she would have had to go back in, return it, get her money back, wait for her husband to go buy it again and go back through line. Well, that was,
my gosh.
so I call that a pain point. And from that day on, I said, there's a better opportunity. So, and Uber, of course, was coming into light in those things. And I was starting to use Uber everywhere I went. I thought, how about on-demand service for moving big stuff? So we developed an app. I invested my own money into developing an app to nothing but Uber for stuff. We bought 4 trucks. And we decided to develop the concept here in Orange County. And the idea is that anywhere you want to go on demand, you can go on the Bring Pro app. The name of the company is Bring Pro. The name from Bring It to You Professionally. So what you get is a truck, a van with 2 drivers in uniform that will essentially do anything you need them to do as far as moving stuff. So I say we move everything from envelopes to elephants, because one day we had a company needed to get a check to somebody really quickly. They had no other choice, so they used our service to deliver a check.
So you show up in a big van, and then they just take an envelope over?
And then we had another guy who wanted to move a big pink paper mache elephant. And so it just barely fit in there. It barely fit inside the van. It was a good-sized van. So, we can move just about anything that's big. Typically, our stuff is household goods, furniture, stuff from Costco. Costco's probably our single biggest source of getting things delivered. And it's been evolving here in Orange County, and now we're going to be going globally, or at least throughout the U.S., through a franchise system. We decided a franchise system is good for that thing because we need hours. We need them to wear a uniform. There's certain rules that they need to apply to in order for the model to work.
And so it's a little bit. I mean, I'm thinking like DoorDash. You kind of like are Postmates, but you're taking big stuff.
Yeah. So there's a big hole in the market for big stuff. Who delivers big stuff? Who delivers big stuff from Amazon? If you buy a TV from Costco today, it'll take you 2 or 3 weeks to get it. There's no instant delivery. There's no next day. There's no same day on big stuff. So we're kind of the Uber or the DoorDash or the Grubhub for big stuff.
Huh, very cool. And so how much involvement you have in Ticket Socket and Bring Pro? Like, I'm assuming you have people that are running those for you?
Very little, yes. So both of them have great operators that run it. I also own another publishing company called Prism Automotive. We publish a trade magazine that goes to all the franchise car dealers. Started that about when I bought Zach. And I had no way to get the word to the car dealerships who were our customers about Zach. There was no trade magazine. So my business partner bought the book Publishing for Dummies, and we figured out how to open up a trade publication. It's 15 years old now and doing very, very well.
Really? So you started this publication originally as a way to market to car dealerships what you were doing at Zach?
Exactly.
And now it's just it's lived on and it keeps going?
Yes, that's correct.
And it's the same business partner from Zach?
No, it's a business partner, my business partner in Pedego.
Oh,
so
okay.
Terry and I went to school together. We pledged the same fraternity together. We were roommates in college. We were best men in each other's weddings. And when I wanted to open up the trade publication, I was busy with Zach, and he was looking for something to do. So I approached him. I said, hey, we should open up a publishing company and print a magazine. And his response was, I don't know anything about a magazine, and there's no way there's not already a magazine for this $85 billion industry. So he calls me back 2 days later and says, I bought Publishing for Dummies, and you're right, there is no trade publication. Let's do this.
Man, very cool. So you've got a lot of different stuff going on. All right, so this is what we call the muzzle load round. So there are questions come in a little faster, but not too fast, take time to reload. So what have you accomplished in your business that you're most proud of, or in any of your businesses?
Well, I would say without a doubt in Pedego, helping other people become entrepreneurs has been the thing I'm most proud of, because most of our dealers have never been in business for themselves. We help them with everything, forming an LLC, finding a location, helping them negotiate a lease. That's all before they even open. Once they open, we help them with all their marketing tools. We help them buy their Google AdWords. We train them how to do it. So I take a lot of pride in all the people that are part of the Pedego family that have become entrepreneurs because of us creating the platform for them to do it.
Very cool. If you could go back in time, what would you tell the younger version of yourself?
Well, I would tell the younger version to be patient and to learn from everyone you can. Learn of what your interests are. So, I really enjoyed working at Wynn's, and at the time I thought I loved it, but I didn't love the business. I loved the idea of being in business, but I didn't love what we were doing, selling chemicals. Now I love what I'm doing. I love the fact that everybody wants to talk about the bikes, that I want to go ride the bikes every day. If I was at Wynn's, I'd be drinking the chemicals if I was that much in love with them. Well, in the case of being in this business, everybody loves the bikes, and I love the idea that we're selling fun, and that our dealers also love the idea that they're selling fun.
Yeah, very cool. What are you reading, listening to, or subscribed to currently for personal or professional development?
Well, I hate to admit it, but I'm addicted to LinkedIn.
Okay.
I learn more about.
Why do you hate to admit it?
Well, because it's almost like a habit. Maybe it's a good habit. I just, people talk about they spend too much time on social media. I prefer LinkedIn because it's all about business. It's about ideas. You can hear from Richard Branson on LinkedIn. You can hear from Elon Musk on it. I love to hear about other business leaders, and LinkedIn is a very powerful place to do that. So,
real quick, how do you get LinkedIn to curate content that you're interested in?
Well, it's an ongoing process. I'm not so sure I can answer that question. They have algorithms.
Do you follow people, or do you like certain groups or certain concepts, and then that will help populate content for you? Or
yeah, I believe their algorithm works exactly like the other, like Facebook does, where it figures out what you're interested in. It serves you up what they see a trend to do it. Interesting enough, one of the guys who's in charge of a global guy on LinkedIn sent me a LinkedIn message the other day that said he test rode one of our bikes when he was on vacation in Pedego 30A in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida, and now he lives in Chicago and he wants to buy one.
Very cool. That's awesome. Habits and routines that you have to stay on top of your game.
Well, I'm addicted to email. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I grab my iPad and I take care of all my emails for the day. That way I don't have to worry about it when I get up. So usually from about 5:30 to 6:30 a.m., I'm answering emails, paying attention to what's going on, reading news articles, and then I start my day at 6:30 by swimming, and for about an hour, and then heading off to the office. I usually don't get to the office till about 8:30 or 8:45, but in the meantime, I've gotten a whole bunch of the day already knocked off.
Yeah, very good. That's kind of counterintuitive. A lot of people say like checking your email first thing in the morning is not something you should do.
I've gotten into the habit, so it works for me.
Works for you. I like it. Well, awesome. Don, this is great. Thanks for taking the time to come and share a little bit more about Pedego. And it's always fun, when you have brands and things that you've done and enjoyed, to hear the story behind how they came about. For anyone who's in the Orange County area, my favorite place to go is to the CDM store. I like it because from CDM you can make it down to like Crystal Cove area. You can even probably get down to Laguna, right?
Yeah, not very safe. I wouldn't recommend.
Okay,
you want to go the other way toward Huntington.
Okay, yeah. So I love the CDM store right down to Crystal Cove. You could even go down to the Beachcomber, or you can go north and actually make it down to Balboa, and you can take them on the ferry, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Not only that, you can also go up Newport Coast Drive. People say, how powerful are your bikes? Newport Coast Drive is a steep, long incline. It takes from sea level up to 1,000 feet above sea level in just a matter of 2 miles, and the bikes have no problem going up there. And there's a very safe bike path on the right-hand side of Newport Coast Drive as you're going up it.
Oh, there we go. Even better. People want to find out more. What do you recommend? They just go find a store and go get on one of the bikes, or what's
the first step I recommend is go to Pedego YouTube channel and watch all the stories we have. We've done a lot of video creation of people, customers, dealers. You can learn quite a bit going to just type in Pedego YouTube channel. You'll find it there. Or you can go to our website, pedego.com. There's a lot of stories listed there. But then go try a bike. I'm not going to tell anybody here to go buy one. I'm going to suggest that they go try one. And you can test ride them. And if you like after the test ride you want a little bit longer, go rent one for a couple of hours or rent one for a day. And you'll discover that it might be something that you can find out. There's not any amount of money you can spend today on anything that's as much fun as riding an electric bike. And if any of your listeners want to challenge me on that, tell me what else is more fun than riding an electric bike. Just send an email to don@pedego.com, and I'd love to hear about it.
Very cool. Well, awesome. Thanks again, Don. This has been really good.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. Today's episode was produced by the talented Jessica Watts. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Also, for more content, follow us on Instagram @SeaLifePodcast, or check out our Facebook page, The Sea Life. And last but not least, if you're into health and fitness, be sure and check out our other podcast, Stark Naked Radio.
so much hair for a newborn. We need to start planning his baptism and his holiday outfit and, ooh, his birthday party.
Sure, but, how long are you planning to stay?
If you're one of those who goes to meet your newborn nephew and stays until his first birthday party, switch to Cricket Wireless. Use your phone as many days as you want in Mexico without extra cost. Smile. You're on Cricket. Requires eligible plan. Minimum $55 per month. Data speed usage and other restrictions apply. Coverage not available everywhere. See store for details.
I'm in Glendale and found love in the South Bay. Yes, I find myself in an LA long distance thing. Guess who helped make it work? AT&T. I bought one phone, got another one on them. And romance is alive on the 101.
Come into an AT&T store, buy a smartphone, and get one on us. More for your thing. That's our thing.
Limited time in areas. Select devices. Each requires up to $900 on installment agreement. Requires one new line and minimum $75 per month service. Free after credits over 30 months starting within 3 bills. If cancel service, device balance is due. $30 activation, additional fees, taxes, and restrictions apply. See your local AT&T store for details.